Now, we're talking about writing reflections. Writing a reflection, a roadmap to self-understanding and growth. Why reflective writing? Reflective writing isn't just a summary, it's a chance to look inward. It allows you to consider what you've learned, how you've grown, and the ways in which your writing process has changed. Reflective writing helps you understand yourself better and identify practices that have worked well or need improvement. The purpose of reflection. Through reflection, you assess your past experiences, evaluate your choices, and ultimately set a direction for future writing. The goal is not only to document these insights, but also to make specific connections to your growth as a writer. Step 1, understand the assignment. Review the prompt. Reflective assignments often come with a specific prompt. It's crucial to understand what type of reflection you're being asked to produce. Ask yourself, what kind of reflection is this? Personal? Analytical? Are there specific questions or aspects you need to address? What writing strategies or processes should be highlighted? Then clarify your expectations. Make sure you're clear on any format, structure, or length requirements. This initial step sets the stage for effective focused reflection. Step 2, consider your rhetorical situation. Identify your audience. Primarily, you're writing for yourself to explore your personal growth. However, your instructor and possibly your peers are also part of your audience. Ask yourself, who is reading this reflection and why? What insights are they expecting to gain? And what elements like revision work, decision making, or past experiences would they find valuable? Think about your purpose. Why are you writing this reflection? To demonstrate growth as a writer? To analyze how you applied certain skills from one assignment to another? To explain decisions you made during the revision process? Understanding your purpose keeps your reflection focused and relevant. Step 3, examine the context of your writing. Provide background information. Explain how the writing you're reflecting on fits into the larger course or assignment context. If you're reflecting on specific writing decisions, reference concepts covered in class like argumentative structure or source integration. Background helps your audience understand your decisions and the factors influencing them. Step 4, consider genre, medium, and design. Choose the right format. Reflective writing can vary in format. It might be a letter, a memo, a narrative, or a formal analysis. Let the prompt guide you. Use appropriate strategies such as description, explaining what you did, analysis, examining the effectiveness of your strategies, and evaluation, assessing what worked and what didn't. Medium and design. If you're submitting a portfolio or referring to other works, organize and highlight these materials in a way that complements your reflection. Step 5, think about language and style. Language choices. Reflective writing allows some flexibility in language. Think about what type of language will be most effective for your audience. Should your tone be formal, conversational, or somewhere in between? If your reflection involves personal growth, some informality might make it more genuine and relatable. Step 6, gather materials for reflection. Collect relevant artifacts. Collect drafts, final versions, outlines, feedback from instructors or peers, and any brainstorming notes. Organize these materials to make reflection easier. Use a folder on your laptop or a physical binder to keep everything in one place. Consider the following. Do you have different versions to compare? The original draft versus a revised draft? Organizing your materials effectively can help you trace your development and assess improvements. I think that's one of the things I like so much about the way the online classes are structured, specifically that you send me your rough draft and then I revise that and send it back to you, and then you have your final draft as well. I like this because I can look at both drafts, right? I can be like, what you changed from draft A to draft B, and see if you've taken my feedback. I always say seriously in the notes, but like if you've changed the things that I meant for you to change, but I think that can be helpful for you students as well, right? Because you're like, hey, I've got the past version here. Like if you've made any changes, like probably, I mean, if it was me, this is what I would do. My rough draft would just turn into my final draft. I wouldn't make a new assignment for that, right? I would just keep working on the original draft. But because you put a copy online, you can always go back and look at that old draft, right? And there it is. So if you do need to make choices based on that, they're there for you. Step 7, reread and take notes. Review your materials with purpose. Go over your work with the assignment goal in mind. Note specific memories, thoughts, or feelings tied to your writing. These observations can add depth to your reflection. Questions to consider. What do you remember about your writing process? Were there specific steps or strategies you used consistently? Which parts of your work reflect your personality? Identify moments of success and analyze how you achieved them. Did you have any breakthroughs or aha moments? Step 8, generate ideas with free writing. Free write to capture insights. Free writing helps you uncover insights by exploring specific questions. Were there off-the-page factors like distracting environment or a helpful routine that influenced your work? Think about emotional responses. What parts of writing felt exciting? What parts were challenging? These reflections can lead you to identify patterns in your writing process. Step 9, identify patterns in major decisions. Look for themes in your work. What trends do you see in your writing? Do you tend to use anecdotes or rely on peer feedback? Identify key successes and challenges. What moments are you most proud of? Where did you encounter obstacles and how did you address them? Pinpoint the decisions that had the biggest impact on your work, like changing topics or adding a new research source. Step 10, organize and start writing. Draft your thesis. Reflective writing can benefit from a thesis or main claim, which concisely states your key insights and what you've learned. Use your main takeaways to shape your thesis. Consider what's most significant about your journey as a writer in this assignment or course. Structure your reflection. Arrange supporting points logically. For example, start with early decisions or challenges and processes to breakthroughs or successful revisions. Use paragraphs to separate key insights, each one backed by specific examples from your work. Step 11, incorporate evidence from your writing. Use examples to support your points. Directly quote feedback you received or cite specific phrases you revised. Examples from your writing allow readers to see your progression and the strategies you applied. Show revisions that illustrate your growth or experiments with language that reflect your voice. Step 12, explain why and how. Go beyond what you did. Explain why. Strong reflective writing explains why you made certain choices and how they affected your growth. Use statements like, I made this decision because, or I revised this section to better align with. Ask yourself, why did you make these specific decisions? How did certain experiences shape you as a writer? Step 13, identify plans for future writing. Look forward. Reflection isn't just about the past, it's about setting future goals. Consider practices that you want to continue, like seeking feedback early. Thinking about areas where you need improvement and how you'll address them. For example, if structuring an argument was challenging, plan to outline thoroughly next time. Step 14, craft your opening and conclusion. Draft an engaging introduction. Your introduction should preview the main ideas and concerns of your reflection. Provide any background information necessary to set up your thesis. Conclusion, the big picture. Summarize the major takeaway from your reflection. Why do these insights matter? End with a look forward to how you'll apply what you've learned. Step 15, edit and revise with feedback. Polish your reflection. Reread your draft, checking for clarity, completeness, and alignment with the prompt. Seek feedback from others to do a self-assessment. Is the thesis clear and specific? Do the supporting points and examples align with the main ideas? Does the major conclusion provide a thoughtful summary? Revise. Make adjustments based on feedback, aiming for a clear, insightful reflection that truly captures your growth as a writer. By following these steps, you can craft a reflection that is meaningful, insightful, and valuable for both yourself and your audience. Reflective writing is a tool for growth, helping you become more self-aware and intentional in your writing journey. Reflecting across genres, how purpose changes perspective. The shape of reflection. One of the most important lessons a writer can learn is that reflection isn't one size fits all. Just like writing changes depending on your purpose and audience, reflection changes too. The way you reflect in a personal narrative isn't the same as how you reflect in an analytical essay, and it's definitely not the same as reflecting in a research paper. Each genre calls for a different kind of thinking, a different kind of honesty, and a different kind of voice. So, today we're going to talk about how reflection looks different across genres, and how learning to adapt your reflection helps you grow as flexible, intentional writer. By the end of today's lecture, you should understand how tone and focus on reflection shift between narratives, analytical and research writing, how reflection helps you connect learning between genres, and why adaptability and reflection is key to becoming a mature, self-aware writer. Why reflection changes by genre. Let's start with the big idea. Your purpose determines how you reflect. If you're writing a personal story, you're reflecting on experience. If you're writing an analysis, you're reflecting on interpretation. If you're doing research, you're reflecting on discovery and growth. That means your reflection isn't just about you. It's about your mind is operating inside that particular kind of writing. It's like being a performer. A musician doesn't play the same way in a stadium as they do in a quiet jazz club. They adjust their tone, their rhythm, their energy to match the space. Good writers do the same thing. They adapt their reflection to fit the form they're working in. Let's look at what that looks like in practice. Reflection and narrative writing. What did this experience teach me? We'll start with the most personal kind, narrative reflection. In narrative writing, reflection is built into the story itself. It's the moment you step back from the event and realize why it mattered. You might ask yourself, what did this experience teach me about myself to others? How have I changed because of it? Why does this story matter beyond what just happened? Think of it this way. A story without reflection is just an event, but a story with reflection becomes a moment of meaning. For example, at the time I thought losing that debate meant I had failed, but looking back I realized it taught me more about listening than winning. That's reflection. It takes what happens and translates it into insight. In a narrative, your reflection doesn't need to be formal or academic. It can sound like a realization, a turning point, or a personal truth. The key point? In a narrative writing, reflection answers the question, so what? Why this experience matters, and what it taught you about being human. Reflection and analytical writing. What patterns did I notice? Now let's shift to analytical reflection. Here, the goal is to reveal your emotions. It's to reveal your thinking process. In analysis, reflection's about showing how you built your interpretation. It's like letting the reader peek behind the curtain of your mind to see how you put the argument together. You might ask yourself, how did I arrive at this interpretation? What patterns did I start to notice as I looked closer? And what surprised me or challenged my first impression? Analytical reflection shows the reader how your brain worked, not just what your brain concluded. For example, at first I focused on the character's dialogue, but after rereading I noticed that the author's use of silence revealed even more about the power and control in the story. That's a reflective moment because it traces a change in thought from one interpretation to another, from surface level observation to deeper analysis. The key point? In analytical writing, reflection is awareness of thought, tracing the intellectual path you took to arrive at understanding. So while narrative reflection is emotional, what did I learn? Analytical reflection is cognitive. How did I think my way here? Reflection and research writing. How did my understanding evolve? Finally, let's look at research writing reflection. This one often feels the least personal, but it's actually deeply reflective, just in a more academic way. In research-based reflection, you're looking at how your understanding changed as you engaged with information. You might ask yourself, what did I believe or assume at the start of my research? How did new evidence challenge or deepen that belief? What do I now understand different than before? What new questions emerged along the way? In other words, you're telling the story of your intellectual evolution. Before I began my research, I assumed renewable energy adoption depended mostly on cost. But after reading several case studies, I realized cultural attitudes and government policy were far more influential than I expected. That's reflective because it shows how evidence reshaped thinking. The key point: In research writing, reflection chases your intellectual growth, how information transformed into insight. Each form of reflection is valid, but each asks something different of the writer. All share one common thread: awareness. You're asking yourself, what changed in my thinking as a result of writing this? And that question, that self-awareness, is what transforms writing from a task into a tool for learning. Adaptability, reflection as a transfer skill. This is where everything we've learned about metacognition comes back into play. When you can adapt your reflection across genres, you're building something called transferable awareness. The ability to take what you know in one writing situation and use it in another. That's how writing connects across disciplines. A reflective skill you learn in English class, like identifying patterns or recognizing growth, will also help you in science labs, history papers, or public speaking. Reflection becomes the bridge between writing experiences. For instance, you might realize, the self-awareness I developed while writing my personal narrative helped me recognize my own assumptions in my research paper. Or maybe, the pattern spotting I practiced in literary analysis made it easy to organize evidence and themes in my research essay. That's the power of reflection across genres. It helps you carry your learning forward instead of starting over each time you face a new kind of writing. The key takeaway: reflection builds transfer. It's how writers connect lessons between genres, subjects, and even beyond the classroom. Conclusion: reflection as adaptation. Reflection is more than looking backward. It's about learning how to look differently. In a narrative, you reflect to find meaning. In analysis, you reflect to find patterns. In research, you reflect to find growth and understanding. Each genre demands a shift in voice, purpose, and focus. And every time you make that shift, every time you adapt how you reflect, you become a more self-aware, flexible, and powerful writer. The more adaptable you are, the easier it becomes to transfer skills between assignments, classes, and even parts of your life. Reflection turns writing into more than an assignment. It becomes a form of thinking, a way of learning how you learn. That's what makes reflection the most valuable tool a writer can have. Reflective risk-taking, writing without fear. The fear factor in writing. Let's start with something honest. Most writers, students, professionals, even published authors, are afraid when they sit down to write. Afraid of saying the wrong thing. Afraid of sounding stupid. Afraid that what they write won't live up to the image in their heads. That fear leads to hesitation, over-editing, procrastination, and sometimes even avoidance. But here's the truth. Every great piece of writing started as a risk. Someone somewhere dared to try something new, a strange word choice, a bold topic, an untested structure, and they learned from what happened. That's what we're talking about today, reflective risk-taking. It's the idea that writing bravely and reflecting honestly afterward is how you grow as a writer. By the end of this lecture, you'll understand why perfectionism limits creativity and growth, how risk and reflection work together, how to use failure as information, not evidence of weakness, and how to build a writing mindset that celebrates curiosity over correctness. Perfectionism versus progress. Let's start by naming the enemy: perfectionism. Perfectionism in writing sounds like this: if it's not perfect, it's not worth turning in. I'll just wait until I have the right words. I can't start until I know exactly what I want to say. But perfectionism doesn't produce better writing, it produces less writing. You freeze up before the words even reach the page. Why? Because perfectionism confuses product with process. It tells you that good writing appears fully formed, when in reality, all writing is messy in the beginning. Great writing doesn't come from avoiding mistakes. It comes from making mistakes and reflecting on them. That's how writers turn risk into learning. So let's reframe perfectionism. Instead of aiming for flawless, aim for fearless. The fearless writer doesn't worry about being perfect. They worry about being honest, curious, and intentional. Every great writer is a risk taker. Think about your favorite authors, journalists, creators. What do they all have in common? They take creative risks. George Orwell took a risk writing 1984, criticizing his own government during a dangerous political climate. Toni Morrison took a risk centering her stories entirely around Black voices and experiences when publishing was still dominated by white perspectives. Mary Shelley took a risk creating Frankenstein as a teenage girl, writing a monstrous story during an age when women were expected to write only love poems. Even your favorite songwriters or filmmakers take risks. They experiment with sound, tone, form, or style, not knowing how the audience will react. Writing without risk is like playing music with no sound, safe but empty. And the difference between a writer who grows and one who stalls is reflection. A reflective writer doesn't just take risks, they study them. They ask, what worked, what didn't, what surprised me, and what will I try differently next time? That's the real creative loop. Write, risk, reflect, learn, repeat. Reflection turns risk into knowledge. Let's be clear, taking risks isn't about being reckless, it's about being curious. Reflection is what keeps that curiosity productive. Without reflection, risk feels random, like throwing darts blindfolded. Without reflection, risk becomes experimentation. You learn where your aim landed and how to adjust. For example, let's say a student decides to write a college essay in second person. You wake up early, you walk to the bus stop. That's a risk. If it fails, they might be embarrassed, but if they reflect afterward, why didn't this work? What effect was I hoping for, and what did I learn about tone? Then even that failure becomes success in disguise. Reflection turns every experiment, even the messy ones, into experience. So instead of judging your writing by how safe it is, judge by how much you've learned. Let's try something different from a normal peer review model. Instead of sharing your finished essay, imagine sharing your reflection first. Before your peers even read your draft, you tell them what you tried to do, where you took a risk, what you think worked and didn't, what you learned in the process. This shifts the conversation from judgment to growth. Your classmates aren't just evaluating your writing, they're helping you understand your experiment. A reflection-first workshop builds a culture where risk is normal. It says, we're not here to prove we're perfect, we're here to prove we're learning. When writers share their process openly, fear loses its power, and that's the environment where creativity thrives. Building a class culture that celebrates creative fails. Now let's talk about something revolutionary, celebrating failure. Most of us have been taught to hide our mistakes, to treat every red mark as a symbol of shame. But what if we flipped that idea? What if we treated mistakes as evidence of experimentation? Think about scientists. When an experiment fails, they don't throw out the lab notebook. They analyze it, they publish it, they learn from it. Writers can do the same thing. Every time you try a new structure, tone, or topic, even if it doesn't work, you're gathering data about what your writing can do. So here's your challenge. Start collecting your creative fails. Edison, how many times did he fail when he was trying to make a light bulb? Keep a short journal or note file where you record the risks you took in a piece, what worked surprisingly well, and what fell apart, what you tried next time. It's like keeping a map of your writing experiments, proof that you're not just repeating yourself, you're growing. And here's the best part. When you look back on that process, on the journal at the end of the semester, you'll see something that perfectionists never do: progress. Reframing failure from shame to curiosity. Let's pause and reframe the emotional side of this. When something doesn't work in your writing, the natural instinct is shame. I'm just bad at this. Why can't I write like everyone else? What if you changed that inner voice? What if instead of I failed, you said, I discovered something? Failure is information. It tells you something real about your process, where your instincts led you, where your ideas stretch too far, or where your clarity is lost. You can't improve what you refuse to examine. That's why reflective writers aren't afraid of mistakes. They mine them for insight. It's not I failed, it's I learned what doesn't work yet. That single word yet keeps you growing. Examples of reflective risk-taking. Let's look at a few kinds of risks you can take in writing. Language risks. Trying a metaphor that feels strange. Writing in a new voice or experimenting with rhythm and repetition. Structural risks. Starting in the middle of a story, using unconventional paragraph breaks, or ending with a question instead of a conclusion. Content risks. Choosing a topic that feels uncomfortable, personal, or unfamiliar, one that challenges your comfort zone. Perspective risks. Arguing a position that's hard to defend, writing from a viewpoint different from your own, or exploring an unpopular opinion. The point isn't to shock your reader, the point is to stretch your own thinking, to see what your writing can handle. And when you reflect afterward, you'll start to notice patterns. I take risks in ideas, but not in form. I'm brave with topics, but not with voice. I always play it safe when I revise. Those realizations are gold. That's how you build a personal writing identity. Conclusion: writing without fear. At the heart of reflective risk-taking is this belief: mistakes don't define you. Reflection refines you. Every draft, every risk, failure is a chance to understand yourself more deeply as a writer. When you stop writing to impress and start writing to discover, you become unstoppable. So next time you face a blank page, ask yourself, what am I afraid to try, and what could I learn if I tried anyway? Because growth doesn't come from safety, it comes from curiosity, courage, and reflection. And that's what writing without fear really means. Today we're going to focus on one of the most powerful tools for personal and academic growth: setting goals through reflection. Think of this as creating a roadmap for your future self as a writer. Reflection isn't just about looking back, it's about using what we've learned to pave the way forward. The importance of goal setting in writing. Setting achievable goals in writing helps you approach each new assignment with a clearer sense of direction and purpose. It also creates motivation because you're not just writing for the sake of it, you're writing to improve specific skills. Goals give us benchmarks to measure progress. Without goals, it's easy to feel like we're just spinning our wheels, but with goals, every new writing task becomes a step forward. The key points: why reflection and goal setting go hand in hand. Connecting past experiences to future improvement. Reflection allows us to look back at our writing and identify patterns. What worked well? What was challenging? And where can we grow? Through reflection, you can see areas you've struggled with consistently or moments where you felt especially proud of your work. These observations are invaluable because they help you pinpoint specific skills to focus on next. Goal setting as a bridge between past and future. When you use reflection to set goals, you're actively making changes based on your own writing experiences, which is far more personal and meaningful than following general writing advice. A useful way to approach reflection is to look at your last essay or writing assignment. Identify 2 strengths and 2 areas where you struggled. From this reflection, you can build a specific goal for improvement. Setting achievable goals, the SMART method. What makes a goal achievable? An achievable goal is something you can realistically work on in a short time. It's specific, so you know exactly what you're aiming for. It's measurable, so you can tell that you've made progress. Introducing SMART goals. It has to be specific. Focus on a particular aspect of your writing. For example, thesis statements, evidence, structure. Something that's measurable. You have to be able to track your improvement. Use clearer transition in each paragraph. Achievable. Set realistic goals. Instead of aiming to write a perfect essay, aim to improve one skill at a time. Relevant. Make sure your goal aligns with your personal challenges and needs as a writer. And then time-bound. Set a time frame like the next assignment or semester to reach your goal. Example goals. Instead of improving my writing, try use 3 different types of transition words in each essay. Instead of write better introductions, try begin my introduction with a hook and a clear thesis statement for the next 2 essays. Examples of specific writing goals. Goal 1, using clearer transitions. Transitions are the glue that holds your essay together. A goal around transitions could look like: I will use at least 3 specific transition words in each paragraph to guide my reader through my argument. To make this measurable, consider making a list of transition words or phrases and keep it by your writing space. Goal 2, improve your thesis statements. Thesis statements are the backbone of any argumentative or analytical essay. Setting a goal here could mean, for my next 3 essays, I will write my thesis statement before I start the body paragraphs, and then check to ensure every paragraph supports that thesis. You might use a checklist that asks, Is my thesis specific? Is it arguable? Does it address the main points of my essay? Goal 3, strengthening evidence and support. Many writers struggle with finding and using the right evidence. A goal could be, in my next essay, I will include 2 direct quotes per body paragraph and explain how each quote supports my argument. This helps you develop the habit of integrating evidence smoothly and effectively. Then, using past reflections to identify realistic goals. Reflect on past work. Think back at previous assignments or feedback you've received. Think about questions like, what did my instructor or peers often comment on? Where did I feel the most uncertain or confident in my work? For example, if feedback often mentions unclear organization, a realistic goal could be, outline my essays before drafting and ensure each paragraph follows a clear structure. And avoid overwhelming goals. Start with a small, manageable goal. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to fix everything at once. Instead, focus on one area like improving clarity, organization, and evidence. Remember, writing improvement doesn't happen overnight. By setting and working on specific achievable goals, you'll notice gradual progress that will build your confidence as a writer. With each new assignment, revisit these goals and adjust as needed. Celebrate small wins. Each one brings you closer to becoming the writer you want to be. Today, we discussed how setting specific writing goals based on reflection can improve your skills and give you direction. We looked at examples of achievable writing goals and talked about using past experiences to inform future goals. Goal setting and writing isn't just about becoming a better writer for this class. It's about developing habits that will serve you in any writing context, now and in the future. By taking small steps and reflecting regularly, you're setting yourself up for lasting success.